This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for this edition of CBN NewsWatch on this Friday, February 1st. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, more reaction to that failed bill in Virginia protecting abortions as Republicans, including President Donald Trump, have blasted the measure. And polls show the public does not support late-term abortions. And what will happen if in the failing socialist country of Venezuela? We're going to show you what could be the determining factor. Plus, a look at this Sunday's Super Bowl, the game itself, and the Christian faith of many NFL players. All those stories and much more are ahead in this edition of CBN Newswatch. We want to begin this hour with the fallout from the Democratic abortion measure in Virginia. Republicans from across the country have blasted the measure. And this bill, along with New York's recent abortion law, could make abortion a major issue in next year's elections. And some pro-lifers say the measure, like the one proposed in Virginia, are actually a good sign. Our Caitlin Burke is on this story.
Pro-lifers and Republicans from around the country blasted the Democratic bill in Virginia, which would allow abortions to take place up until the day of birth.
The pro-abortion leaders in these states are proving once and for all what they're really about, and that's abortion whenever, even up until the moment of birth, and even after birth.
President Trump spoke out about the proposed legislation as well, saying during an interview with the Daily Caller that it would lift the whole pro-life movement like never before. Hawkins also believes the legislation is actually a good sign for the pro-life movement.
Abortion advocates are showing their hands. They are so afraid that Roe and Doe are going to fall very soon, that they're going to Democrat states where they feel like they have a stronghold, to pass this outrageous legislation to make sure abortion's legal in their state once Roe falls.
Meanwhile, a Democratic co-sponsor has backed away her support of the legislation, writing in an email that she didn't exercise due diligence by closely examining the language of a bill she was attaching her name to. And Virginia Governor Ralph Northam, a pediatric neurologist, is defending his own comments in support of the bill. Critics said his position on what could happen to a child after birth amounted to infanticide, but Northam said Thursday his comments had been mischaracterized. None of the Democratic lawmakers running for president in 2020 have commented on the Virginia abortion bill, but many of them are co-sponsors of a bill called the Women's Health Protection Act, which would override state restrictions on third trimester abortions.
The majority of Americans aren't even anywhere near that. That's an extremist position to hold. In fact, a poll we just had released showed that only 7% of millennials, the largest voting bloc in America, were in line with this thinking on abortion all 9 months and taxpayer funded.
And Gallup polling indicates Democrats are out of step with the public on this issue. 60% of Americans think abortion should only be allowed in the first trimester, and only 13% support it in the third trimester. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
The worst polar vortex freeze is over, with AccuWeather forecasters predicting a temperature swing of some 40 to 80 degrees in the days ahead. At least 13 people died because of the extreme winter weather. It was a rough week across the nation, from the Dakotas to north and southeast. Wind chills reaching record-breaking sub-zero temperatures like -66 in Minnesota and 41 below in Chicago. Drivers face whiteout conditions, and despite the freeze, fires breaking out and the winter winds not helping firefighters in Brooklyn, New York, where a 10-alarm inferno destroyed a paper mill. Forecasters say the warm-up will be dramatic, but the cold is not gone. It just won't be as extreme. It is the biggest fentanyl bust ever, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents. Officers say they captured nearly 255 pounds of the synthetic drug that is fueling a national epidemic of fatal opioid overdoses in America. Agents found the drug Saturday in a secret compartment inside a load of a Mexican produce truck heading into Arizona. They say a second scan of tractor-trailer truck detected some anomalies, and police dogs sniffed out the drugs. The seized opioids have a street value of $3.5 million. Agents say they also confiscated nearly 395 pounds of methamphetamine with a street value of $1.8 million. President Donald Trump praised the bust in a tweet Thursday, writing, "Our great U.S. Border Patrol agents made the biggest fentanyl bust in our country's history. Thanks, as always, for a job well done." Going further south into Central America, President Trump aims to end the socialist regime in Venezuela. He is throwing U.S. support behind removing its dictator from power. But international pressure may not be enough. The administration is backing interim President Juan Guaido, but many believe Venezuela's armed forces will decide the country's future. Dale Hurd brings us the story.
Members of the Venezuelan opposition approach an army base, offering soldiers amnesty from prosecution if they turn against the government. The battle for the future of Venezuela is a battle for the hearts and minds of the Venezuelan armed forces. Anyone who wants to get rid of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro cannot do it without the army. And that's the tricky part, because the army has been a willing partner in the Venezuelan government's criminal activities. Latin American expert Juan Carlos Hidalgo.
It is very important when we analyze the situation in Venezuela to keep in mind that this is not a regular dictatorship. This is a mafia. This is a criminal gang. They're deeply involved in crimes against human rights, corruption, drug trafficking. The estimated corruption runs in the hundreds of billions of dollars.
Hidalgo says Venezuela's military leaders have a strong incentive to keep Nicolas Maduro in power.
The armed forces know that the alternative for them to be in power is either going to jail, face the justice in Venezuela under a democratic government, or faces extradition to the United States for drug trafficking.
And that's why the opposition is offering the military amnesty. The other power broker is Cuba. Cuba is heavily invested in the survival of Maduro and is spying on the army and helping to enforce loyalty.
Thousands of Cuban troops are deeply embedded in the armed forces, as well as intelligence services and secret security services. This is why it's so difficult for troops to launch an uprising.
Maduro has begun maneuvering to crush the rebellion, and Tuesday announced a formal investigation of opposition leader Juan Guaido, recognized by the U.S. and several nations as the real leader of Venezuela. Guaido said if anything happens to him, the protest will intensify. President Trump called Guaido and offered his support and said all options are on the table in dealing with Maduro. But Guaido has said he's against using the U.S. military to get rid of Maduro. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
An American missionary doctor who risked his life to serve patients at the height of the 2014 Ebola crisis has been honored for his service. Dr. Rick Saker contracted the Ebola virus while caring for pregnant women at a Christian hospital in Liberia. Thursday evening in New York, Dr. Saker received the L'Haim Prize for Outstanding Christian Medical Missionary Service. Dr. Saker, the prize includes a $500,000 award that will help train other medical experts in the West African nation. Saker talked about what he's learned from other missionaries about the intangible rewards of their service.
As I got to know older missionary doctors and people who had devoted their lives to this kind of service, they don't regret it. They don't say, I've given up so much and what do I have? They say, look at the treasured relationships I have. Look at the, the little thing I've been able to do and how God has used it and multiplied it. And there's nothing as rewarding as that.
The L'Haim Prize was started by American Jewish philanthropists Mark and Erica Garçon to help improve Africa's healthcare infrastructure. Republicans in the Senate are breaking with President Donald Trump on a key foreign policy issue. CBN News will head to Capitol Hill for more on a vote to slow down the troop withdrawal from Syria. That is tonight on CBN's Faith Nation at 6 p.m. Eastern, and you'll find it only on the CBN News channel. Coming up, we'll go to Syria itself and look at the implications of the president's announcement about pulling U.S. troops out and the power struggle developing in the region between countries like Iran and Russia.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Home to the Southern Gospel Station from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites. CBN Southern Gospel. Available now at cbnradio.com.
President Donald Trump's decision to pull U.S. troops out of Syria has led to a power struggle among some familiar bad actors in the Middle East, like Iran and Russia. CBN's Chris Mitchell traveled to northeast Syria to find out more about what this might mean for the region and beyond.
After President Trump's announcement of a pullout of U.S. troops, a geopolitical tug-of-war began over northeast Syria. Who wins will determine the future and fate of the Middle East. The main players are a threatening lineup: Turkey's President Erdogan, Russian President Putin, Syrian President Assad, and Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei, all wanting to fill any void left by the exit of U.S. troops. Their target? Leaders of a new, largely democratic government inside northeast Syria. It includes Christians, Arabs, Kurds, and other ethnic groups. They say Trump's surprise decision left them at the mercy of the larger nations around them.
The people in this area are very frightened by the decision of the American pullout because a lot of countries and militias are coveting the region east of the Euphrates to replace the American. Russia, the Assad regime, Iran and Turkey, or the Nusra Front that have declared publicly that they will support Turkey on their attack of the east of the Euphrates.
The decision by President Trump for the withdrawal of the U.S. troops was a decision not at a good time, and it wasn't coordinated with us if we are ready or not ready. This decision had really negative consequences on the Council.
Most see Turkey as their main threat.
Turkey is so dangerous because it has been the old and the new enemy for our people from the before the revolution and now. Erdogan wants to take our area to make it to him, related with the Turkish government.
Then Syria and Russia came courting, hoping to build a relationship. Yet if this new government were to align with Assad and Putin, the regional chess game could increase the threat to Israel. That's because an alliance between this newly formed government and Syria could provide Iran with a much larger route to transport weapons and supplies to Hezbollah in Lebanon. This would complete Iran's desire to build a land bridge to the Mediterranean. Israel is already fighting to keep Iran from basically transforming Syria into its own military base on Israel's northern border. Within just the past year, Israel has launched more than 200 strikes against Iranian targets within Syria. With both Israel and Iran promising to hit each other harder, any influx of weapons could turn this simmering conflict into all-out war. Earlier this month, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo explained what happens when the U.S. leaves a power vacuum.
We learned that when America retreats, chaos often follows. When we neglect our friends, resentment builds. And when we partner with our enemies, they advance.
If the Americans go out and there's no agreement on the political front, for sure that's going to cause a lot of chaos in the area, and that chaos will cause a lot of conflict in the region.
Pompeo also said America is a force for good in the Middle East, and that's the ultimate hope of this new group of leaders.
Your partners have fought the terrorism and ISIS side by side with our United Syrian Democratic Forces alongside American forces. Now the war is still going on, and the Syrian Democratic Forces have given more than 8,000 martyrs for the sake of fighting ISIS. So how do you give up on them that easily?
While it remains to be seen who will win this tug of war and fill the void here, all indications are whoever prevails will help dictate the future course of the Middle East, Israel, and perhaps the world. It's all part of a new emerging Middle East. We'll have more reports here from northeast Syria, including what these new developments mean for Christians in the region. Some are openly talking about the possibility of another genocide. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, northeast Syria.
And Chris is actually back now in Jerusalem from Syria. He joins us now. So, Chris, what are Christians telling you about potential genocide and why?
Well, you know, Ephraim, just a week ago, I was sitting down with people of a church from Kobani, northeast Syria. It's a church of the Brethren. I was sitting down there having a Middle East meal, and they're terrified of what might happen. You can imagine if you're going to church this coming Sunday and realize that maybe just a mile away or so, there's a country that wants to come in. They remember 1915, the Armenian genocide. Many of the people that I've talked to, their grandfathers or great-grandparents were part of that. They had to flee. Also, last year in Afrin, that's when the Turkish army came with the Free Syrian Army, which are basically Islamists or jihadists. They came door to door looking for Christians. They burned churches. And this is what people are saying to us, that they're really fearful there might be another genocide if Turkey is allowed to come into northeast Syria.
What are the potential scenarios that might unfold if the U.S. does actually pull out?
Well, I can think of three, Ephraim. First of all, I could say that Turkey came in to invade what they say are terrorists, the Kurdish people. But there's much more than just the Kurds in that. There's many minorities in that region. Also, they want to have a 20-mile security zone monitored by Turkey. That's another scenario. Also, it seems that if the U.S. could stay, that's one possibility as well. But really, the key right now is that the pressure from Turkey is putting pressure on this government inside northeast Syria. They're talking to the Assad regime, and that might actually be an agreement they would do. It would be very bad, I believe, for them in northeast Syria, as well as Israel, because that opens the door for Iran.
Chris, what do you have planned for tonight's Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we have planned exactly this story, Ephraim. We go into depth about the tug of the war, the geopolitical. We even expand on the story you just saw. We talk about the Christians and the genocide. And we talk what I think is a quite exciting story, one of the first in the Middle East, Ephraim, this new government. It's a democratic form of government. It's a new one in the Middle East, and it could be really of shades of things to come. Really a good news story. They have actually set up a democratic form of government, and it's really a bright ray of hope. However, it's actually threatened by this pullout of U.S. troops, so we'll see what happens there. But that'll be on tonight's Jerusalem Dateline.
Much to look forward to. Thank you so much. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joining us today from Jerusalem. Thank you, Chris. And again, you can catch Jerusalem Dateline this evening at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel. Still ahead, what to expect from Sunday's Super Bowl, and we're going to take a look at some activities Christians will be involved in at the big game this year. Stay with us. There's much more of CBN NewsWatch coming up right after this.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I Wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
And welcome back. The Super Bowl is just 2 days away, and fans are gearing up to see their favorite players in action. The night before the game, for the big game, players, coaches, and the biggest names in the NFL will gather to name the winner of the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. It is a big night for the Christian community as well. 3 of this year's nominees have ties to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Bears tight end Trey Burton, Kansas City Chiefs punter Dustin Colquitt, and also up for the award is Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive tackle Gerald McCoy. Now, I spoke with CBN sports reporter Sean Brown about this weekend's big game and how the faith community plays a role. Some of the players are really outspoken about their faith, as we know. How does that affect the community, the NFL community?
The NFL community, man. And you know what? The Super Bowl is my favorite event because of that. These guys are very, very solid. They get it. They know that the Lord is head of their life. They're not, swayed left or right by the event, because the Super Bowl arguably is the biggest sporting event in the country. Indeed. Everybody's watching, and you need that. You need something to kind of keep you rooted in all the excitement. And so, yeah, faith is a big, big part of the NFL community, man, and I love it.
Do you think we're seeing a ripple effect of more and more teams and players sharing their testimonies and faith journeys?
Absolutely, absolutely. It varies from team to team. You look at the New England Patriots. They've been here several times, but every year I've been to the Super Bowl, there's so many believers on the team. It is a part of their community. It is a part of who they are. You look at last year, the Philadelphia Eagles, same thing. They're baptizing players. So as you look at each organization, you see a presence of faith in the organization. So it is definitely going up from organization to organization. It is awesome to see.
All right, real quick, we have the game Sunday between the Patriots and Rams. What are we expecting?
Hopefully a good game.
Yes.
Tom Brady's going to be Tom Brady. We know that. We know the Pats are going to, they'll probably have the, everyone's giving them the win. But if the Rams can, if the defensive guys, Aaron Donald can sue. If they can get to Tom Brady, we might see a difference. I mean, look, 2 years ago, Atlanta Falcons, it can happen. They just got to finish.
All right.
Every down.
Every down. It matters. And we have a special treat for you this weekend on the CBN News Channel. It's called Football Sunday. You're going to hear stories from NFL stars like Minnesota Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins, Denver Broncos quarterback Case Keenum, and New Orleans Saints linebacker Demario Davis. It is all hosted by New Orleans Saints tight end Benjamin Watson on location in New Orleans. The show will air Sunday on the CBN News Channel at 1, 5, 8, and 11 p.m. You'll be sure to check it out. Coming up, some NFL players, mostly retired, but also some current ones, are in Atlanta with a purpose other than football. They're singing the gospel.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Home to the Southern Gospel Station from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern Gospel favorites. CBN Southern Gospel. Available now at cbnradio.com.
It's not the Rams or the Patriots, but another team that's also getting ready for the Super Bowl in Atlanta. It's a gospel choir featuring former NFL players and some current. Take a listen. The Super Bowl Gospel Choir performed last night at a gospel celebration during Super Bowl week, and the event will air on BET February 2nd. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and today I leave you with this thought. You just heard it, but think more on it. Who is the King of glory? The Lord God strong and mighty. Remember this, the Lord is indeed mighty. He is mighty in battle, and he is mighty to save. With that word, make this a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. Well, that will do it for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember that you can find more on the issues you care most about always at cbnnews.com. And you can watch CBN News programs anytime on the CBN News Channel. Plus, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today on the News Channel by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. And you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Goodbye, everybody, and God bless.